get started. How did you come up with The Host? Why did you choose to make it about aliens? I didn't have a dream to get me started on The Host. I've only had one dream that led to writing a story, which was Twilight. And I should remember not to say that. The way I got started on The Host was a very boring car trip, and I had nothing else to think about, and so the idea of this two people in one body in love with the same person just sort of was in my head, and I don't know where it came from, but then I started thinking, wow, that'd be really cool, very complicated relationship. I could get some pages out of that. But the reason, it just was about aliens from the beginning. So I think it's natural for me to write about science fiction because that was something I grew up with. My dad used to always read us fantasy and science fiction at night, and so it's really my roots. And so aliens, I'm sure, is just the first of it. There'll be lots of other interesting things that come out of my files eventually. All right. Why do souls only invade or rather take over one species per planet? Example, Earth, humans, the bear planet, ice bears, etc. Do they look for the most intelligent or most violent, or they just pick a species at random? The answer to that question is that they tend to take the dominant species because they don't want a body that doesn't have much intelligence, because they couldn't work with it as well. So they could technically be implanted into a cat, but then they'd have the mind of a house cat, and that wouldn't be as much fun. Now, those of you who read carefully in the beginning will remember that on Fire World, they realized that there were actually two intelligent life forms on the planet, and they were in the process of trying to make that work. Okay. How did you have time to write The Host with so much else going on? And then, in parentheses, really small, who do you like better, Ian or Jared? The bottom question depends on what I'm looking for on any given day, because some days you want the tough guy, you know, the muscly guy who kind of can take care of anything. Some days you want the poet, and so it just depends on which day, which one I like best. But I found the time to write it because, I know, me too. I found the time to write it because I was editing Eclipse at the time, and you know, you do all your edits and send it back to your editor, and usually you kind of get a deadline, like, okay, you have 2 weeks to get this back to us. We're in a really big hurry. So you work 12, 13, 14 hours a day, send it back, and then you're here for them for like 3 months. So during those 3 months is when I would work on The Host. I couldn't write book 4 because what if something really big got changed in Eclipse? I just have to go back and rewrite everything, and I was itching to get started on it, but I didn't want to make more work for myself. So I started working on The Host to just give myself something to do in the meantime. Of course, it ended up being twice as long as anything else I've ever written. But it was a really great project, and it was so different from Forks and from that world that it was just restful to be in a new place, and I really did enjoy that. Okay. When you wrote those tense scenes between Jared and Ian, did it remind you of Jacob and Edward? Although they're different characters, the intense love triangle seems to resonate similarly. That's a good question. I hadn't really thought about that. For me, I really like to write complicated situations because, I mean, if you have a girl who falls in love with a boy and everything works out really smoothly, there's not much to write about. So, I like to have things a little bit more difficult than that. And so I guess there are some similarities, but the characters feel so different to me, and the situation, because there actually are two people in love with two different people, doesn't feel the same. But I can see the comparison. All right, this person typed, they were prepared. All right. After reading The Host, I felt a connection to the storyline. I sense in you a great protective love of a younger family member. I have a brother that's 12 years younger than me, and I feel like he's always been the one sibling that I would kill or die for, almost as if he were my child. Is this relationship in your story based on an actual relationship in your life or a fictional one? I have a little brother who's 10 years younger than me, and also one that's 8 years younger than me. And when I was growing up, there's something that most of you have not experienced yet that I like to call mom nightmares. When you have kids, half your nightmares are about like some spider creeping closer to your child and you can't move. And I used to have dreams like that about my brothers because I was really protective of them. I still am. So there is that relationship. I know how it would be to have those mother feelings for a brother, and if the mother was out of the picture, how much you would take that role on yourself. So that actually is from my own life. The covers. This one is what does the ribbon on the cover of Eclipse mean, but I better go through them all. Okay, first of all, it is not my arms or my eye on any of the covers. I don't have blue eyes, but no, they have people in New York who get paid to be pretty. They're called models. They do. they're just there on the spot, and they can show up any day of the week, so they tend to use them over the authors that might live on the other side of the country. So the Eclipse cover, for me, is, you know, you have this ribbon that's cut off not very neatly. And it was, for me, the metaphor is the idea of not being able to make a clean break with your past life, because it's never that easy. You know, you can decide, I'm going to put it all behind me, but there's always a few threads you can't break. The apple cover is about the idea of choosing. You know, the apple doesn't have a bite in it yet, and I just really love that sort of, I mean, it's a very simple picture, but at the same time you can just feel this waiting, because are you going to bite the apple? Is there something wrong with it? Why are we hesitating? What are we thinking about? And then, of course, there's the fruit of knowledge of good and evil, which is really what Bella's looking at there. And then the flowers means nothing at all. I didn't get to pick that one, so. Pretty much the set, I guess. The good news is that with book 4, I actually did pretty much design the cover in a lot of ways. So I'm really happy with it. It turned out the way I wanted it, and that's always the good news. All right. Did you ever imagine the Twilight series would be so huge? I kind of picked this one because they have really pretty handwriting. I'm impressed. No, I didn't. When I wrote Twilight originally, no one was ever going to see it but me. So it was a little weird to let anybody see it. And then I thought maybe, I don't know. I mean, I thought on some occasions, maybe someday, like someone was going to tell me that Twilight was their favorite book. You know, and I just thought, but no, that's way too arrogant to ever expect that. But maybe people will like it. So I wasn't really expecting for people to love it the way they did. I knew I loved it, but I wrote it for me, so it should specifically be perfect for me. So I was really surprised, and the way the series has just kept going, and people are still picking up Twilight, and everyone's still so excited about it. It's amazing. I mean, I really can't describe what it's like to have a room full of 1,000 people screaming for your books. It's bizarre, and it's really cool, but at the same time kind of overwhelming, because, you know, wow, it's just a story that I wanted to write. It's really cool. Here's the one about the movie, because people get excited about the movie. I'm excited too, but I do most of my screaming at home alone. What was your first reaction when finding out someone wanted to make Twilight into a movie? Good question. I first got interest in Twilight in 2004, a year before the book was actually out on the shelves. So that was pretty early in. I still didn't know if anyone was going to like it. And I had several producers interested. And what I was worried about, as all you can imagine, is the fact that most books that get turned into movies suck. There's a couple of really good ones. I mean, I love the Bourne trilogy, and Sense and Sensibility, the Emma Thompson version, is like the best remake ever made. So there's some good ones. And so the decision really came down to, for me, okay, there's a really great chance that they're going to screw this up completely, but if they get even one scene right, even one moment right, just to see it on the big screen, that was what sucked me in. Luckily for me, I think they're going to get actually a lot of things right. So,